Good morning and welcome to MOTH News. I'm Keith Walsh and we're with you for the next hour. You happy about that? Isn't that great? Whole hour. Covering stories that matter and stories that get missed by those nasty guys in the mainstream media, legacy media. Boo! Al will be joining me with an update on Geoffrey Leo's repayments. I wonder, has he enough money in his pocket to pay back the people he said he'd pay back? The chicken farmers, the Wennings over in America. He borrowed money, he bought stuff, and now they want the money back. But has he got enough time? Is he running out of time? We'll talk to Al about it. And also the fallout of bad PR and how it can have a lasting effect on a company, even though it was lies. We'll also preview the Women's Euro final with our pal and sports journalist, friend of the show, Philip O'Connor, including the women's game here in Ireland. Are we doing enough? We have a little clip of that. Are we doing enough for the women's game here in Ireland? Let's play that clip.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because it's a key time, and we have never had an organisation in the Football Association of Ireland that has been capable of doing these things. The Football Association of Ireland is probably the best in the world at making PowerPoints and the worst in the world at delivering any sort of results on or off the field. Ireland should have been here. That Welsh team should have been beaten by Ireland in the playoff, and they should have been there. And the fact that they didn't, those questions haven't been answered. Like, who is responsible for that? Ultimately, the players are responsible for every result, but so too are the coaching staff. But I think...
Yeah. So we'll have that full interview with Philip just a little while after the news and brief. And yeah, I mean, the FAI, they're going to have to get the finger out. And as I talked to Phil about, in a weird turnabout of events, it looks like, and it could be, that the women's game actually helps improve conditions for the men's team. So we what do we know about Irish, government funded organizations? They're shit, but we live in hope, but it's the hope that kills you, am I right? Okay, also we will be talking about Ozzy Osbourne, RIP, and we've got a movie review, very strange and more. It's a bit of a lighter show today, not so much sadness. But first, let's start with our news in brief, and very, very, very sad news in Fermanagh with the triple murder suicide. If you haven't seen or heard about that, it's devastating. I mean, we had this is tragic for everybody. But on a serious note, we had those riots in the north when some foreign speaking people attacked, sexually assaulted a young girl, and there was a court case, and there was riots. There was people burnt out of their houses. There was people chased out of their houses, people chased out of streets, people told to go home. Really, really, really strong reaction from the local community. And then it just sort of had a ripple effect throughout the counties in some of the counties in the north of the country. But the amount of women being assaulted and killed in the north of Ireland by, let's just say, I don't know how you describe it, but maybe like third, fourth, fifth generation people who have lived in the north, who have white skin, and zero reaction. So, and here we go again. I mean, this is just devastating all around. It's hard to put it into sort of a category of terrible things that are happening to women, but it's sort of a standalone thing as well that happens, and we've had them in Ireland as well, in the Republic, and it's very, very hard to get your head around how somebody could do this. A devastating story from Maguire's Bridge in County Fermanagh, where a mother and two of her children were shot dead in what police suspect was a murder, triple murder and attempted suicide. A fourth person, a man from the same household, remains in critical condition in hospital. The Police Service of Northern Ireland say that the investigation is at an early stage, but one line of inquiry that this was a domestic attack that turned deadly. So read between the lines. We know what happened, and it's very, very, very sad, and something will have to be done. For something proper, helpful, will have to be done for the women and children of the north. Also, a 112 billion infrastructure plan boosted by Apple windfall. Ireland is set to ramp up capital spending on housing, transport, water, and energy. So the government are going, yes, it's a budget, and we've loads of money from Apple, and we're going to like to splurge. Maybe finish the children's hospital. You know what I mean? Maybe improve care home facilities. Maybe listen to families who have been affected by terrible things that happened to their loved ones in care homes and give them a few quid, or listen to their what happened and fix them. We don't need windfalls. We don't need bargain. We don't need the government coming out going, yay, we're going to give loads of money, we're going to give it away. It's all bullshit. Thanks to a 14 billion windfall from Apple and the sale of bank shares, the government plans to spend over 112 billion in public investment between now and 2030. But critics say it's still unclear whether the cash will be spent effectively or just politically. Well, we know which one. It's not going to be spent effectively. It's going to be spent politically. Actually, they're not even going to spend it politically. They'll just say the right things, and then we'll be like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to that. Remember they said they'd do that metro from the airport into town. We've been talking about, you think the children's hospital is a debacle. The metro, they haven't even broken ground on that. And they've been talking about it for about 30 years. Whoo! I thought this was going to be a lighter show. Also, new home building jumps 35%. We don't even know if these things are true anymore. It's just been said. New data from the CSO shows Ireland had its strongest 6-month period of home building since 2008. It's come from the CSO, Central Statistics Office. It's not a government minister saying it. We've got to believe it. Over 9,200 housing units were built in the second quarter, up 35% year on year, with much of the growth driven by apartments. Where are the apartments going to? Yeah, vulture funds. Families? No. Are there more houses for families and homeless? No. The surge is welcome news for supply, but the affordability question remains wide open. The affordability question and also the availability of these new homes, apartments, to families and people who need them, homeless, and to people who are relying on council housing. Any change there, guys? I don't know what is wrong with me. I'm very, very autistic today, and I'm making a lot of autistic noises. So bear with me. I'm not saying I'm autistic as in I am actually autistic. I'm allowed to say it. It's like the N-word. If you're allowed to say it. Do you know what I mean? Before we go to Philip, let's look at some of the reactions to last week's show. We heard from whistleblower Julie Grace, and we had a little clip of Julie Grace, and then we put out the live show on YouTube as well. You can watch it there. Watch everything back on our live on YouTube if you missed it. And from Kieran Brady about his father who died during COVID in the care home. From Marion Kildare, we need more people like Julie Grace. It's terrifying how the state treats truth teller. Yeah. Treats truth tellers. Very difficult for an Irishman to say. 33 and a third. Thank you, Marion Kildare. And heartbreaking listening to Kieran. That could have been my dad. Connor. Could have been all of our dads. Could have been anybody. And it will possibly, because they haven't changed things. So it'll still be someone's dad. As Connor and Loud. And accountability in care homes is long overdue. And that comes from an anonymous person. And they sent that message on Instagram. So thank you very much. You can follow us on our social media. We are on Instagram, we're on X, we're on all the cool sites that all the kids are on. You know what I mean? So go to X, go to Instagram, or go to YouTube to watch videos, comment on stuff, and just hang out with the kids. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't say that. A grown man saying go on social media and hang out with kids is the wrong thing to be saying. I take that back. Can we edit that out? This is live. Okay. Swiftly moving along, I spoke to our pal, friend of the show, Philip O'Connor, he's got his feet on the ground. He's in the trenches. He's watched a lot of matches at the women's UEFA. Let me get this right. The UEFA Women's Euro Finals competition thing. Are they going to have to call the UEFA the men's now? The men's and yeah, probably. Anyway, we spoke to Philip about the Irish game, and also he gave us a prediction for the final and who he thinks will win. Is it England? Did he back England? Or Spain? Did he back Spain? Let's have a look. Philip, me old pal, how are you doing?
I am all the better for talking to you today here, Keith. It's been a long time since we had a chat. There's been a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of women's football under the bridge as well. The hills are alive with the sound of women's football here in Switzerland, and I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you about it, my friend.
Yeah, because you're there on the ground at the UEFA Women's Euros 2025 in Switzerland. How's it been?
It has been mad altogether. Now, I think there's been 30 games so far, and we still have the final to go on Sunday. I've been to 18 of those games. I think I've traveled around about 4,000 kilometers by car. I've been to 7 of the 8 stadiums. The only one I didn't make it to was Sion. I've seen good penalties. I've seen bad penalties. I've seen great goalkeepers. I've seen not so good goalkeepers. I've seen some brilliant goals and some brilliant games. But most of all, Keith, I've seen a game whose time has really, really come in Europe. And Switzerland has been a sort of a microcosm of that over the last few weeks, because in the beginning, when we arrived here, the Monday before the tournament started, Switzerland took on Norway on the Wednesday in the first game. It seems so long ago now. And I kind of didn't get that buzz of excitement that you usually get if you land in an Olympic city or a World Cup country or that kind of thing. But the moment the tournament got underway, the whole country has just gone bananas. Now, partially that's because Switzerland are better than they've ever been. They made it to the quarterfinals, got beaten by Spain. They could leave with their heads held high. But also because fans have streamed across the border from southern Germany, from Italy, from France. There's a load of people from England here, as I'm sure we're going to talk about. So there's been great support from the Norwegians. I've seen people driving in camper vans and cars down from Sweden. And, you have loads of Finns here, Brazil jerseys, everything is going on. And it's really taken over the discourse in a way that I hadn't quite expected. Because, as I say, in the past, if you went to a women's tournament, it barely scratched the surface. But it's very much part of the consciousness here in Switzerland at the moment.
Yeah, you need that, don't you? You need the country that it's been held in to get behind it. And I mean, look, the towards the end, the stadium seemed really full. The thing I noticed, and I said it to my son the other day, I said, what I really enjoy about watching women's football is the crowd, because you don't really get the big red-faced angry man screaming obscenities.
No, that's usually me in the press box. I do that.
At someone taking the corner. Do you know what I mean? It's a much nicer, more. There's a vibe about it that everybody's encouraged. Like, it's like, it's a spectacle. You're going to get the rough and tumble and the aggro on the pitch, and the women are well able to hold their own and throw in a dirty tackle as well as a good tackle, and a tough shoulder as well as whatever. And there's some really great, amazing skills on display. Berger last night in goals was exceptional.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Spain were probably wondering whether they get past her at all. But the crowds have just met, like, it's just a different vibe, different atmosphere. Obviously no vuvuzelas. And it just feels nice,
Yeah, it is, and it's always been the big difference for me with the men's and women's game, Keith. Like, if I go back now to maybe 2013, I think was the first women's Euros that I covered on site, and that was because it was in Sweden where I live. So I packed the tent and the wife and the kids in the car. Or the kids and the wife, they actually got to sit in the car. They weren't
in with
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So and we travel around Sweden, and they went to the games, and I sat in the press box and I wrote about them. But back then, and this was the sad thing really, because you didn't have the crowds. Like, if Iceland were playing Denmark, okay, maybe a few people might come up from Denmark to see it, but you might get maybe 1,200, 2,000 people at a game like that. But here, pretty much every stadium I've been in has been 10, 15, 20,000, a new record every day there's a game played. So it's reached that critical mass now that it's not just the families of the players and the fans of specifically of the women's game who are going, it's random people in the street going, yeah, okay, cool, I'm into this now. And we've seen the same ourselves. There was a huge growth in interest around the Irish women's team when they qualified for the World Cup. Now, unfortunately, that was in Australia and New Zealand. When the men first qualified, that was in 1990. It was in Italy. It was reachable. Australia and New Zealand, okay, half of us are already there. But, the average fan back home, it was a very expensive trip to take. And I know people who weren't in the squad and players who sort of, invested their life savings in that. So the vibe is different, but it's also different. It's a different makeup. This is a very queer-friendly sport. So there'll be a lot of gay women involved. LGBTQ plus people feel very comfortable in this environment so far. It's families, it's boys, it's girls, it's men, it's women. And the other thing that I absolutely love to see this time, Keith, is when you see people wearing replica jerseys, when they're wearing their country shirt proudly on the street and in the stadium, for the first time, we're seeing so many women's names on the back of those jerseys. And that's something I haven't seen before. Unless it was a player's family, they would always have, their daughter's name on the back. But now it's spreading, and it's a great thing to see when you think of, 10, 15 years ago, when people simply did not take the game seriously. And now men are wearing women's names on the back of their shirts. I think that's a great sort of sign of how far the game has come.
Yeah, and some of those, we've seen in Ireland women's female players becoming household names. Katie, obviously, as an example. Now you're starting to see, like, the German goalkeeper and Katrin Berger, I think is her name.
Yeah.
It's a household name. I just barely remembered it. And then you have we have players from England coming through, like the young 19-year-old who scored crucial goals in the last 2
Michelle
games.
Aguiman, yep.
That's it. Yeah, see, I didn't say it because I couldn't pronounce it, but it's a household name in England.
Yeah.
And they're representing their, and they're over there, and people are really like rooting for them now. And there's a pub across the road from me, and they've got a big screen outside and for the match, and it's just families and there till late, and there's a good buzz. I'm in the UK at the moment, and there's a great buzz about it. So let's get to the actual final. First of all, do you think, I need to ask you, do you think the penalty for England against Italy, your thoughts?
That was one that I still haven't seen back, right? And I'm kind of glad I haven't seen it, because in the moment I watched that penalty and I went, yeah, that's a penalty, right?
Yeah.
Now, the debate afterwards that I was sort of talking to people about was whether or not, it's not whether or not Mead was taken down, because she was in some ways taken down, but was whether she was the one who was using her head and initiated the contact, at which point you can go back to the video assistant referee and you can make a decision, say, well, there was two of them at it, because at every set piece, every free kick, every corner, every time the ball goes in the box, there's things like that. And it's just a case of, does it meet the burden of proof to blow the whistle and to call for a penalty in that situation? Personally, I really enjoyed the last few days, especially in the knockout rounds here. The referees have been tremendous because they have let it go. And I've seen some of the most physical football I've seen at any age grade or gender or level. It's been, the game between Sweden and England was absolutely magnificent because they just went at it. Nobody asked for any quarter. Nobody gave it. They just went at it. And that's why the penalty shootout, by the way, people were saying, they can't take penalties. No, 120 minutes of what was essentially the WWF with a football thrown in the ring. That was brilliant entertainment. So I think Italy were unlucky. I think this tournament actually came a little bit early for them. So their league has only really been full-time professional since 2022, the start of that season. And they've reaped great benefits for that. They've done much better in the Champions League. They've had, like, Fiorentina have a good team. Roma have a good team. Juventus just won the league there. And they have the money. They also used to have a sort of a salary cap there where you couldn't pay out as much money as you wanted. All that's gone, and they're able to bring in good foreign players with good habits and mix that then with the local girls. And I think that this tournament is just a little bit too early for them. They were really good in the 90s when nobody had any resources whatsoever, as you would expect. Great at defending, great organ, all those typical Italian cliches. But then the rest of the world sort of overtook them a little bit. And I was only writing there in the half an hour or so before we started to speak there that Spain are relative newcomers in this, right? And in the same way that when you and I were growing up, Spain were always the bridesmaids on the men's side, never the brides. Like, they were good, but they never won anything. And then it took that sort of transition to tiki-taka and the domestic success, and Barcelona and Real Madrid both being very good together. And the women's side is similar, because in 2013, I remember seeing actually one or two of the players that are in the squad at the moment, and they went out in the quarterfinals of that tournament, and they didn't impress. They were good technically in that, but they weren't among the sort of the top nations. 4 or 5 years later, and again, it's that investment piece. It's taking the game seriously. It's big clubs with big muscles and big resources doing things for the and now they're really more than that. So it's incredible to see. But Italy, I'd say in 4 years' time now, this is their first semi-final, I think, since 1997. Came a little bit early, but I do think now that they're going to sort of muscle their way in on this. And my question really, when I leave here, is going to be, is that at the expense of the Germans? Because the Germans are 8-time champions, and yet they went out in the semi-finals last night. Haven't looked 100% convincing. They were beaten badly by Sweden. They had 2 bad red cards that they probably shouldn't have had as well. And that sort of, sort of affected what they were doing. And they've also had a couple of injuries. But it just goes to show that you can't rest on your laurels in the women's game at the moment. And I suppose that's the message to people watching in Ireland and the UK and in Scotland and Wales and all these places, that we need to invest in the game now, because this train is leaving the platform, girls, right? And if we're not on it, we are going to be left behind, right? If it can happen to Germany, it can happen to Ireland and Wales and Scotland. Wales were probably the poorest of the 16 teams here. They got here. That's great. But this cannot be, Switzerland in 2025 cannot be the end destination. This is only the start of something else, and we have to be on that train.
So the changes that happened after the scandal of the girls, when they came out and said we have to give the tracksuits back, we were getting changed in the airport and hand the tracksuits back, this isn't good enough, we need to invest with her. There was changes made then, so now there needs to be, we need to go again, there needs to be the next step up. And I suppose when you've got players playing for Arsenal, playing across the water and further afield in Europe, in our domestic league, like Athlone Town are one of the top teams in the women's game in Ireland. They're starting to take people are starting to take interest. So I think you need do we have like a Roy Keane in the team, the Irish team, to kind of go, look, this isn't good enough, we need better. And I presume I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because it's a key time, and we have never had an organisation in the Football Association of Ireland that has been capable of doing these things. The Football Association of Ireland is probably the best in the world at making PowerPoints and the worst in the world at delivering any sort of results on or off the field. Ireland should have been here. That Welsh team should have been beaten by Ireland in the playoff, and they should have been there. And the fact that they didn't, those questions haven't been answered. Like, who is responsible for that? Ultimately, the players are responsible for every result, but so too are the coaching staff. But I think if we just stare at the results, and I apologize if the rain that is pouring down here now in the Swiss mountains is affecting the audio a little bit, right? But there you go. That's the authenticity of being on MOTH News. But we need to look at why that happened, and we need to look at what's going to happen next, right? Because we can look at the results that are happening this summer for Wales and for Italy and for all these things, and we can say, okay, this is where they were now. Where are we going to be in 5 or 10 years, right? The kid who is watching Katie McCabe win the Champions League with Arsenal, what's our plan for her? Okay, how are we going to get her from being on her sofa, wanting to play the game and wanting to be in that team and win things for Ireland, right? And it sounds like very highfalutin and that, but that is the way that it has to be, because that's what Aitana Bonmati, who scored Spain's winner last night, that was what she wanted from the very beginning. She didn't just want to play football. She didn't just want to be with the boys and play football and do her thing. She wanted to win things. To this day, she's one of the most pleasant people you could meet. She's only 27 years of age. She's so well spoken. Every time they wheel her into the press room at a mix zone, it's a pleasure. She'll speak in English, she'll speak in Spanish, she'll speak in Catalan. Even if you ask a terrible question, Keith, and God knows I've asked me share of them, she'll try to massage it into something that I can use. She'll make up for, much as the same way as if she gets a bad pass on the pitch, she'll try to make the best of it, you know. But in Ireland, that's what we need to be doing now. The FAI is not and never has been fit for purpose, right? They are not the people to do this, and especially not the people who are there at the moment. So as an Irish community, as a sports loving nation and a football loving nation that we are, we need to be talking to our politicians and our administrators and say, look, okay, the mistakes of the past are the mistakes of the past. Making the girls change into the under-19s tracksuits in the toilets will never happen again, right? But we need to come at this, no fiefdoms anymore, right? If you're going to be getting taxpayers' money, and it's a huge responsibility for the people involved in football. I really don't envy them the task, but do not put your hand up and say, I'm going to deliver this if you know that you can't. And an awful lot of people in Irish football have been doing that because there's a good living to be made out of it. There's a nice pension to be had out of it. It's a great thing to go on the Late Late Show and talk about, right? But there has to be concrete plans in there, because I think we owe it not just to the girls in Irish football and the women in Irish football and the giants in women's football in Ireland who have gone before, who never knew anything other than changing into tracksuits in the airport toilets, right? We owe it to them to do this properly, because this is one of those ways by which we're going to define ourselves in the future. Our whole ethos around equality, what we're prepared to do for women and girls in sports and that kind of thing. And I honestly think that the opportunity is there more so in women's football at the moment for the next 5 or 6 years than it is for the men's, because I think we could achieve an awful lot more with an awful lot less, an awful lot quicker if we do so.
Yeah, there's a chance that the women's team, the focus on the women's team could sort of elevate things for the men as well, which seems like a bit backwards to where we've come from. Yeah, look, if you're getting money from the government to run an organisation, we need transparency, and we need to see the work, and we need to see developments, and we need to see more than just PowerPoint. We need to see systems that work, and it hasn't happened so far. So look, we can all we can do. It's the hope that kills you, Philip. So the final, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that this is the final that I wanted. This is the final that I expected. I thought the World Cup final was a great game of football between two teams when England lost 1-0 to Spain in 2023. It was there. So this is the thing, and they also played in, they have a great rivalry going on. They're two very different teams, right? And I've been writing a lot and thinking a lot and talking a lot. This is the great thing about these tournaments, is you bump into so many people. You're talking to coaches, you're talking to players, and they're very open in the women's game still. For the most part, you can talk to a player. I talked to the Iceland captain the night she went out for a good 15 minutes about what Iceland have to do to make sure, and they've only 350,000 people, what do they have to do to stay relevant in the women's game, And I've been talking to people about tactics, Keith, and they've been telling me that, essentially England have the master tactician in Sarina Wiegman, right? But her sort of best tactic at the moment has been Chloe Kelly and Michelle Aguimang, and just putting them on late in the game and letting them sort of get them back in and winning an extra time or penalties. Now, that's to sort of, that's been a little bit crude, because Serena does brilliant work. Otherwise, Spain don't do that. They don't change what they do for anybody, because they have this footballing DNA in the way they play the game. And it took Bon Mati last night. It took her 113 minutes last night as we're speaking. They played Germany, won 1-0. Aitana scored in 113th minute, saw the keeper leaving her near post a little bit open and whipped the ball in there. It was a brilliant goal. But it took her 113 minutes to solve the riddle that was Germany last night, right? That's what Spain do. They try everything. They're like a doctor diagnosing, or it's almost like, a coroner more so than a doctor, because they usually leave you dead afterwards. It's like, okay, this is how we do this. And it's brilliant to see, because like, people who really watch and understand football, you can see where they're trying to press, and when you can see where they're trying to poke and probe, and you can see when they're trying to sort of say, okay, the ball's over here, but we really want it to be over there. We're trying to get them to shift out. And Bon Mati is so brilliant at that. She's like an orchestra conductor when she starts doing that, and everybody starts dancing to her tune. I think it's going to be a brilliant game of football. I think that England are not as good as they were 3 years ago when they won it at home in Wembley. Again, Chloe Kelly coming and saving the day with that brilliant goal in extra time to beat the Germans. I think Spain should do it. But what has been more apparent here, Keith, is that tactical flexibility that teams have. Anybody in women's football, nobody will sort of pick on me for saying this. It's come on so much in the last 10 years that girls are much more aware of not just having a game plan going in, but what the game plan needs to be, how it needs to change depending on a player being sent off, a goal being scored, an injury taking place. How do you adjust to these things? In the past, it was very primitive. It was very limited because the girls weren't full-time professionals. They didn't have the time for all these things. But since they've become full-time professionals, they are absolutely outstanding at just changing things really, really quickly in the moment. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. I think that Serena Wiegmann is going to do a few different things. I think that she's going to sort of go with Spain in a different way. I think Spain are going to press England a little bit harder, because France were very successful with that in their opening group game. And I think that, Montse Tormé and that is going to look at that and go, okay, this is how we do this. But most of all, what I would suggest to yourself and the people watching this, watch Bon Mati. Watch her with the ball, watch her without the ball. And it's like watching a kid with a 15-sided Rubik Cube, and eventually she always finds a way to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's exactly what you're saying. And if you watch the game, you can see Spain going, we're going to go beyond the defender. We're going to overlap. Eventually, the defender tires a bit. He gets caught because concentration is going to be huge in the final. And how long can you keep your concentration? How fit are you? And then eventually, you get that moment where the defender's caught a little bit, and you have the space. Every time you've gotten that space, up until that point, you've crossed. In that moment, the keeper's going to think you're about to cross, and you slot it in between the post and the keeper. And that's like, it was just exactly what you're saying. It was a puzzle that was finally solved, and almost like she didn't, obviously, but it was like she built up to that point. She fooled everybody and then pulled the wool over their eyes the last minute, which it was spectacular. It was brilliant. So we think a winner, a prediction.
I think Spain are going to win it. I don't think they're going to win it by much. I've been very impressed by the English defence. Now, there's one other point that the Norway coach, Gemma Granger, I was speaking to her about this, after maybe the first or second game of the tournament, and she's pulled me aside one day, and she said, I'm going to tell you this now, and I'm going to ask you again in a week or two, right? And she said, watch the teams that play in transition, right? So the teams that play on the break, she was going, they're going to need more transitions to score a goal, right? So, if you made 5 transitions and scored 1 goal at the last Euros, they're going to need 7 or 8 now. And she said that's going to take its toll physically on them, right? That to me is kind of what's happened to England at the moment, because they've chosen to sit back a little bit against certain teams, and it's tired them out. So Alessia Russo is an absolutely tremendous footballer. She's played nearly 4 full games now, and there's been extra time, and there's been all sorts of stuff demanded of her, all the training, all the traveling that goes into that. So it's no wonder maybe that she's not scoring as many goals as you might expect when she's just playing a regular league season, and it's 2 games a week, but she gets taken off in the 60 or 65th minute, So that's going to be interesting to watch as well. And most of all, though, what I think is going to be fascinating is the mental battle in the final, right? Because when England got Sweden to penalties, like the international journalists who don't normally cover the women's game were looking at me and go, what do you think? Do you think Sweden will take this? And I said, absolutely not, because England are just a mental monster. They are so incredibly mentally tough that until the final whistle goes and the game is over, they still believe they could be 4 goals down or 3 goals down a penalty shootout. They still believe that they can come back. And they've shown that with the extra time victory the other night and with the penalties victory of the Swedes, that's what they're capable of doing. And other teams look at that and go, okay, like this is like the Terminator that just keeps coming back. If we're going to kill them off, we have to do it completely. And that's why I think that even if Spain get to a goal up or 2 goals up, they're not going to be able to switch off and just pass the ball around the back as they always do, because you have Michelle waiting to come on, you have Chloe Kelly waiting to come on, you might have a player the caliber of Beth Mead who won that penalty waiting to come on as well. And I think this one ain't going to be over until it's over. And that, you won't be able to move me from the side of that pitch for the 90 minutes or the 120 minutes or the 120 minutes plus penalties now this Sunday.
So even if England are 2-0 down at halftime, come back for watch the
makes no
half.
difference. Ironically, the Swedish coach Peter Gerhardsson, who retired after this, is a big fan of Irish music and the Fontaines DC in particular. I got him a Bose jersey he sent to his hotel once with the Fontaines across the front of it, But he was telling me there a little while ago, he was saying that, once you get the first goal in a championship like this, because of the tactical switches, he said it's often very, very difficult to come back. Teams are so disciplined and so well drilled. Now, his team took a 2-0 lead into the break and they looked like they were coasting. And then eventually they conceded 2 goals. I think it was the 79th and 79th and 81st minutes. And that was it. And then when that happens to you, when the momentum goes against you in football, okay, there's always the chance that you'll get a bolt of lightning that gets you back into a game. But when momentum goes against you, it's that little bit harder to make that run, to win that ball. You go up and you head the ball clear, but instead of going to your own number 6 midfielder, it goes to their number 8 midfielder, or it goes to the wing to their player, and you're defending again. And all of those things are sort of the intangibles. I was going through the Opta stats for the Women's Euros today, and there's so many things that cannot be measured, and yet that they're absolutely key in a game of football. And it can be fatigue, and it just can be that idea that, like, if you look at Lucy Bronze, the England right back, the England defender, she just never knows when she's beaten. And I've been calling her Grandma Bronze for years because it just seems that she's been around at the high level for so long, But that's like, when I say that with all love in the world for Lucy Bronze, immense respect, But she just keeps coming. She just keeps coming, and she just will not let go. She's like a zombie, Lucy zombie, But that's what I'm going to be looking for, because I think that's England's biggest chance, is the fact that they don't know how to quit. They don't know when they're beaten. And that is, Spain like to break you mentally. They like to take the ball off you and make you run. They like to have 60%, 65, 70% possession. They like to have 20 shots in a game. England don't care about that. England care about that one opportunity, and that's often all they need to get themselves back from the dead.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much for your time. And we're saying Spain by a goal.
I would say if Spain by any margin, they will be delighted. But I would say Spain by a goal, either 1-0 or 2-1. And I think it's going to be a fascinating game.
Brilliant. Thanks, Philip. Go back.
Thanks, Keith.
Back to doing all the other work now. Cheers.
There you go, Philip, our man at the Euros, and he's really enjoying himself. Big fan of the women's game, and probably he's Irish. We have him here in MOTH, but he's probably one of the most educated in the women's game. So it was really good to talk to him. And yeah, the FAI, get the finger out, sort it out, stop making PowerPoints that don't lead anywhere, and actually do something with the money. And it just comes back to that idea that if you're getting a lot of money from the government, from us, from taxpayers, to do something, we need transparency. We need to see the work, and we need to see we need to see progress, and that's not too much to ask. So, stop being all grumpy and, victimy. Just do the work. Thank you. We keep giving you the money. It's no problem, but we just need to see the work. Now, we should have all the way from, he's back. He's back from stateside. It's Al stateside, the man in the hat. Al, how's it going?
Hey, buddy.
Can I call you stateside?
You can call me stateside. Quoting Geoffrey Leo, shake and bake, baby, shake and bake.
Shake and bake. Is that a direct quote from the man himself?
Oh, it's a direct quote. Yeah, infamous quote from the man himself.
Beautiful, beautiful. What a beautiful quote from, people who say that are dicks, aren't they?
Yeah, I think he's. I think.
Shake and bake suggests that he's getting up in the morning and rolling a big spliff.
The subliminal is it's from, I can't, what's the name of the movie again? It's the movie with Will Ferrell. He's the drift car driver.
Oh, it's Talladega Nights.
Yes, that's the one. You shake and me, I bake, baby. But I guess the undertone is that they end up screwing each other over. Right, for the so I think that was his kind of subconscious.
That's what he is.
Hidden message. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up, man. That's
He's
that's
one
his
of
kind
those deep
he's
south
one of those.
stock car drivers that wants to fuck everyone over and has no friends,
And
basically.
has so that's why he related to that.
Tell
You
us,
know?
have we news on the great Mr. Jeff Leo, friend of the show?
Yes. So the rumors, so allegedly,
Mm.
okay, and we've got I'm going to definitely protect my sources on this one, but I've had let's just say I had a very interesting number of meetings stateside with quite a few people that Jeff has fucked over, right? One we had on the show has become very famous actually on the back of being on the show apparently. So he said the next time he's going to come on, he'd love to sit down with us and really go through the entire process and map it out. But he's been very happy with our assistance in the
Coverage.
process.
So he's going to come on and do a deep dive. So Jeffrey, at this point, he said, I'm going to pay the Wennings back a certain amount of money. This is the money he borrowed to buy the iPass Centre, to buy Dundrum Castle, which became an iPass Centre, amongst other things. He said, okay, I'll pay the money back. What's the story?
So the narrative is he frantically, and I'll use that, frantically tried to get a set aside or an appeal in place where he did not have to take the stand, so get cross-examined. So he was frantically trying to prevent that. So as you know, we outed him first against huge resistance from the mainstream media, legacy media, right? We have not reported on this. As you know, we've shared screenshots where a colleague of ours reached out to Charlie Taylor and said, why aren't you reporting on this? And his feedback was, no story here. There's no story. We only report on stories. But anytime I kind of sneeze in the wrong direction, it seems to be a story for Charlie Taylor. But so ultimately, he's paid a lot of money, or he committed to pay a lot of money.
Said he would.
So apparently, one of the hotels, the Pilo Hotel, was purchased. The purchase has concluded, but the funds have not transferred over entirely. So that's a breach one. This all alleged, right? But this is our information from a very reliable source. Second part is there was due to be an agreement put in place where Jeff can give an undertaking to the Wennings that the securitization of their properties, listen to this is bonkers, their portfolio that they purchased, they entrusted him with over $40 million to purchase these properties debt-free, have debts on them. So you can infer what you want from that, but ultimately took money, bought properties, and then borrowed money against those properties. There's a lot of issues with that. That's, you can call that fraud, which it is. Not only that, his very close colleague, a guy called David Lestrange, is the guy that has the securities on the properties, who has been working with him for a long time. They've acquired companies together. They've purchased companies together. So he's his creditor that has the security on the properties, which again is back to our point, using his liquidator, John Healy, who again, we've now discovered is completely conflicted. So he's involved in a liquidation with Jeff. We have it from a strong source, again, protecting our source, that when asked about his relationship with Leo, he disclosed that he has a relationship with Leo, which then negates the fact that he is in fact in breach of his duty
Compromised.
of Altara. So he's not biased, he's not objective, right?
And he was involved in the liquidation of Altara.
And he's the liquidator of Altara, and he's also was appointed the liquidator of the Wennings holdings at the same time, actually, before Altara. So he knew he was already conflicted and still took the liquidation, right?
And he would be,
on the liquidation.
for the viewers, like, so John Healy would traditionally have been a guy that the state would have gone to he would have been a guy like a liquidator, a trusted guy, would have got a lot of big jobs, would have been called on a lot, and is supposed to be not compromised, independent, and it turns out he's not.
So he would be known as, like, in the street of insolvency, the revenues guy, right? He's on their panel. He's gets a lot of the revenue liquidations, right? Obviously he's effective at doing some stuff. I'm not sure what that means. But he's also infamously known for this show and tell. It's theatrical, it's dramatic, right? Where we're in the court, and then somebody says something, then the revenue guys jump up and down, and oh, it's all like a big drama, oh, we object to that, we want our guy in. It's all a bit, but as you know, we spoke to a case. I've sent you on a pretty compelling one where the judge saw through this bullshit with the revenue and said, no, I'm not appointing more Kirby Healy, which is his partner Miles Kirby, as the liquidator, because you're speaking to the wrong legislation. So in this case, he remained. I don't know if you have the article, but it's the Clarity Distillery, isn't it? Isn't that the one we sent?
Yes. Clarity Distillery. I didn't have the article, but I did read it. Yes, Clarity Distillery.
Yeah. So we might share it at the end for the viewers, but essentially the judge saw through that and continued on with the insolvency process with the existing insolvency practitioner, which was from Deloitte. And I must say, my experience of Deloitte has always been positive. They run a very tight ship. They run direct. They stay right down the line. They're black white. They stick with it.
Would this be the first? Would this be a first for a judge to kind of say to Kirby, to John and his part, whatever, John Healy, Kirby Healy? Would this be a first for the judge to go, no, we're sticking with the?
It would be unusual. Yeah. It's definitely unusual. I'm not sure if it's the first, but it definitely is not the norm, and it's definitely unprecedented.
The revenue aren't coming out looking good, then, are they? If they've been using this guy, it's. There's a lot of questions around revenue at the moment anyway, with I don't know if you saw the news about RT, and there was a landmark case where an employee was bogus self-employed and has been, and it was a landmark case. It just happened, which is good news for me. But basically, the revenue and social welfare all wrapped up in that as well, where they allowed RT to label people as self-employed when they shouldn't have, and RT will have to pay out a lot of money, or social welfare will have to pay out a lot of money, or the Minister for Communications will have to pay a lot of money to people. So anyway, that's an aside, but that's revenue. They're not exactly covering themselves in glory at the moment.
Yeah, and I have a very strong source within government that has reached out to me. Has asked for kind of it to be anonymous, right? For now, but has said, look, there's a few people in senior positions within government that are getting really sick of the Irish corruption tag that we're getting, and they're looking very closely at some of the incumbent civil servants within revenue and other departments in terms of their conduct, and they're really getting tired of it.
Yeah, we have to stop this king making of senior civil servants. That must end. They can't be powerful. So where are we at now then with Jeff in particular then?
So the investors are out of patience. The Wennings are done with this nonsense. He's frustrated the court process, is the information we've got. His band of warriors, which include John Healy, David Lestrange, Mark Hickey from Norwich Farley, have frustrated the process over and over again. This is the feedback we're getting. And he's gone up against two major hitters, which is Kieran Wallace and Arthur Cox. So I think it's down to battle of the wits. But my understanding is that if he doesn't fulfill on his obligations, that they're moving to liquidation. That's my understanding.
Okay. Soon?
Imminent.
Great. We'll watch that one with interest. And on the Killarney Distillery thing, I think what we'll do is a separate bit on that, just stand alone next week. So I think that's very interesting as well, that shift, because there's nothing like a bit of publicity to get people to sort their shit out. And it looks like some people in the Irish government want to end this corrupt state as it is at the moment. So I think we're doing good. We're doing good stuff, so I want to talk briefly about the media role in this then, because it's all very well for, say, for instance, if somebody like a Geoff Leo was doing things but doing whatever he was doing, going about his business, but then like sending press release to certain, so Sunday Business Post, to Charlie Taylor, I feel like there's an Irish Times journalist involved in some of those really positive stories about Geoff Leo, and also at the same time really negative stories about you guys, the owners of Altada, who Geoff Leo got involved in and took down and all that kind of stuff, and John Healy is involved in the liquidation of. They have refused, so there are a lot of very negative let's take you out of it. So a lot of very negative news out there about Altada, the owners of Altada, right? So that remains out there. It's still live. People can see it. So there's a legacy issue. So this is not just the damage this can cause, this bad PR to help bring down an organization using the press. Say, for instance, if that's what Geoff Leo is doing, it's very, very damaging, and that damage doesn't necessarily go away, because if you look at a company, say like Altada or another company going, like, 5 years down the line, and they're looking to raise money, or they're doing something, and this stuff is still online for possible investors to have a look at. It's all false, but it's not being fixed. That's the problem, and that's a big issue for journalism in Ireland and for publications like the Sunday Business Post. And they really need to sort that out, because that is bad. Like, that could take, if somebody took a case against them, I don't think they'd have the funds to defend themselves.
Yeah, and look, there's the moral ground, there's clickbait, right? It's journalists just, printing whatever they want recklessly. Editors are asleep at the wheel, right? In terms of, thinking this through. And, we have it, again, I have it from the same source, categorically, that John Healy briefed the press before sending his report and before allowing us time to respond. This is categoric, right? It's categoric also. There has been a document shared with me that's imminent, that's going to be submitted to the court in relation to John Healy's performance, stating that they feel that their rights as a creditor in relation to the Altada case was breached in relation to John Healy inviting journalists to a creditor meeting unannounced. Mm-hmm. Okay? And was asked, and this is documented, was asked at the creditors meeting, is everybody at the meeting and attending the meeting a creditor? Which John Healy replied, yes. And at no point in time did he advise that Tom Lyons and Charlie Taylor were actually present as journalists at a creditors meeting, which Keith, is unprecedented, right? Not only is it a breach of everybody's right to a fair hearing, but it's unprecedented that journalists would attend that creditors meeting and publish that creditor's report, one-sided report. And then not only that, Ian Curran from the Irish Times then would jump on top of that and publish it also, right? Not only is it unethical, but also the information is incorrect, because that's based on one person's biased opinion of the situation, with no investigation or no right to recourse. And there's a legal process where people have a right to respond. Like, we don't live in like fucking medieval times, right? Where you're judge, you're judge, jury, and you're convicted by PR or by journalists. That's what's happening in Ireland, right? And this is happening to a lot of people, where these journalists recklessly send stuff out, don't put any consideration into there's people behind that, there's lives, there's husbands, there's wives, there's children, there's people depending on these people. It's just reckless. That's the word I'd use for it. And not only that, they won't retract when they're wrong either, right? Like, all of the media guys had an opportunity, and I'd speak to Tom Lyons, Charlie Taylor, Ian Curran directly. They had an opportunity to recalibrate, to demonstrate that they'd backed the wrong guy, that Geoff Leo was a bad actor, right?
It would make sense for them. This is their opportunity now to make amends before it's too late, because if they don't, it's not a moment in time. It's there forever, and it damages companies going forward. We're using you as an example, but if you can't put out bad press in that's not balanced. You can't put out that's journalism. It has to be balanced, and you have to have a right to reply, and you have to report, and then you have to follow up if you've made a mistake. So, it could be damaging for these publications if they don't try and make amends as soon as possible.
And look,
we're calling on them now to make those things right.
But it's a great opportunity for them to highlight that, Geoff Leo isn't operating alone. He's working with a very high-profile family for many, many years, which is the Brogans, right? So Bernard Brogan Sr., Jr., right in the middle of the crosshairs, right? They validated him, so they won't speak out against somebody who's high-profile, right? Which is obvious, okay? But they're right in the middle of it. They were involved in the hotels. They were involved in all these transactions. They will be dragged into it, 100%.
Yeah.
There's no way they can keep out of it. Brogan Capital is the company that was on the Dundrum Dundrum House contractor. This
I mean,
is all published.
So the
It's above
brokers
board.
should be saying, "Come on, guys, we need to, they should
Yeah.
be encouraging. They should be coming out and talking about it. And if they were duped or hoodwinked, they need to be coming out and talking about it. They can't just say nothing. We need to know what the story was. And we're calling on Charlie Taylor, we're calling on Tom Lyons, and we're calling on those publications to make these things right. And this is your opportunity, and you can ignore it if you want, but it's going to be a problem for you down the line."
And look, from a journalist perspective, and you know this, Keith, the burden of proof is on them. It's on them to make sure that they check and double check and triple check that this information is accurate and correct. It's on them to make sure that what they're publishing is correct. Now, however, at that time, if they feel it's correct at that moment of time, I mean, from a journalist perspective, surely they would see this as an opportunity to then come up after and say, "Oh, right, well, look, okay, there's more going on here than we thought. And here's the update, which shows, what Alan was saying about Geoffrey Leo was correct.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that he's used the liquidation process to corporate rate."
Exactly.
Oh, look, the company that has been the beneficiary of the tech have rebranded from an asset manager to a technology company, and now they're AI experts in this technology, and they just seem to have hit the same revenue figures that Altada had communicated with that pipeline, which got them to unicorn status publicly. They've now published the clients they're working with, which just so happens to be Altada's complete pipeline that we had in place before insolvency. What a fucking coincidence, right? And not only that, all of those actors that were involved in the process are now in a high court proceeding that is categorically stating by a very established insolvency practitioner, right? And a very credible practitioner, Kieran Wallace, that he's categorically stating on affidavit that these guys are fucking corrupt. That's it.
So we're saying to Charlie Taylor, Tom Lyons, the owners of Altada are available for interview, and they're very happy to have their photographs splashed on the front pages of your publications with a new interview that sets things, puts things right. Okay, done. Now let's just wrap that up then. So Geoff Leo, he's got a little bit of time. It's not looking good. If he doesn't make good on his payments to the Wennings, they're running out of patience. It looks like he could be in trouble. He himself will be subject of being liquidated.
And the other point as well, Keith, it's important to note that if you were in any established, credible organization, which you're as a money manager, let's call it that. That's even being too complimentary to the guy, but you're entrusted with funds. So if I, entrusted you with 40 million today, and I said to you, "Here's my family office funds. I need you to work on this as a portfolio and get me a return," right? You would expect, even if the fund is underperforming, that you'd get 3x, right?
Yeah.
They're losing money.
Yeah. They've
had to pay legal fees because he's caused them so much aggro. And look, I don't want to hypothesize but I know I've gone through a lot of processes, as you know, which has been published everywhere in High Court. So I know what it costs, and I know it's costing us now to go after these guys, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking it's 6 figures, if not 7 figures at this stage already, that they've amassed just dealing with this guy's bullshit, right? Yeah. Okay, and as you know, we've spoken about that. The court system in Ireland is an elite court system. That's it. If you don't have money, you're screwed, right? Not only that, the money that he's even agreeing to settle, I think it's like less than 50% of the money they entrusted him with. Yeah. So, even if you were a shitty money manager, you'd at least get their money back with a bit of fucking interest. Yeah. If they left it in the bank, they'd probably get charged less than what this guy's fucking done, right? They probably should have just put it under the mattress and fucking slept on it. And then, natural inflation would have caused some kind of increase anyway. I mean, does anybody look at this guy and say, not only
we have to go back to the fact that Geoff Leo wasn't allowed to do business in America anymore, and that's why he came to Ireland. Now, let's leave Geoff Leo there, okay? Because I want to do a movie review. I know you're a big fan of action movies. I don't know. I just watched this movie. Last night, and it's an interesting movie. And I found the audio for the trailer of the movie as well. Let's have a look at this.
He was a man on the run, a stranger in a strange land, a refugee seeking asylum. But no one liked him because he was a bit of a dick who played by his own rules. And now time is running out. The chickens are coming home to roost. He's put all his eggs in one basket, and it's about to explode in his face. A decision will be made. To liquidate. Decision. Liquidation. Coming to a rundown castle near you soon. Based on a true story.
Interesting place to put a movie on, a rundown castle in Tipperary, but you know, whatever. So I would urge everybody to go watch that.
Is he still living in the castle that he purchased from the money that he didn't make any profit on from the winnings?
I don't know. He's a renegade. He does things his own way. He just don't mess with him. He's a crazy man. Yeah, good movie though. I definitely watch it. I mean, the story is so fantastical. You know, it's hard to believe. You know, when you watch these movies, you're like, come on, it's a bit far fetched, but based on true story. So what are you going to do? That's Geoff Leo. Very finally, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about a very important person in your musical interest. You know, when you grow up and you have certain bands at a certain age that just stay with you forever. And some very sad news from the world of rock this week.
Yeah.
Fire.
Back to Birmingham. That's Birmingham, right?
Yeah, so there you go. That's poor old Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, it was a bit of a shock. I thought he was going to live forever with all that bat's blood in him. You're a big fan.
Big fan, yeah. Big fan. Yeah, I mean, look, he did it his way, didn't he? I mean, he was rock and roll, Prince of Darkness, bats on the stage, and I don't know, is it proven or disproven, but were they real ants or not real ants? He did some.
He snorted a line of ants.
Snorted a line of ants.
Yeah. Bit the head off a bat, allegedly.
Allegedly, and well, I think he did do that, yeah. And well, he got. I think what's a phenomenal story is he obviously ended up in an issue with the band. He exited, or they exited him, one or the other, but it's all a bit foggy. I think it was done in some kind of haste. His manager ripped him off, his label ripped him off. He ended up, not tracking his revenue and income. He was just an artist, didn't track any of the tax and all that stuff. Then restarted, and he amassed an incredible fortune. But I think it's not widely known that he's done a huge amount for humanity. I mean, he donated 140 million from all of the proceeds from his gigs in the last while, including this one, went to charities, Parkinson's disease research. I think he's housed an average of 50 families a year, put 8 million into, research again. He funded free music classes and courses for schools, and then some cool stuff he did. He set up a rock museum, bought all the kind of vintage guitars and helped out multiple musician families and stuff. So I mean, he was an absolute legend, you know. And yeah, it's definitely a sad one. And I think, look, the way he went is the way he lived his life. He went on stage. I mean, that was his final performance. He didn't last too much longer. After that, there's a very sentimental clip of himself and Sharon Osbourne at the end of the show, and it was definitely you could see it was a goodbye, you know. But phenomenal human being, I must say. Yeah.
Well, do you think there's any truth in that rumor that he went to Switzerland and died in Switzerland, and he maybe made a decision because he was going downhill rapidly to die there? But
I don't know. I don't know.
You're allowed to choose when you die.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know.
interesting. I mean, I wouldn't blame.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I mean, we have a very sort of there is an image of him, this cartoonish figure from, you know, the Osbournes, that MTV show, of this sort of, like, you know, mad lad, you know, rattling around the house shouting at the cats and shouting Sharon, but and a hugely accomplished musician.
Oh yeah,
came up against it with the band and the management, came out the other side. Just kept going, and you know, you can't keep talent like that down. And his wife is maybe people don't like her, and she's, you know, she hasn't covered herself in glory recently, but she really helped him, you know, by way of management and getting him back, you know, back on track, and keeping his music out there and keeping him recording music, which was really important. So, you know, you kind of have to say hats off to her as well. I mean, I'm not a fan, but hats off to her on that front, you know.
Yeah. Look, look, but what can you do? You're in the spotlight. If somebody's tracking you 24/7, you know, it's just people are going to be Marmite, which are really right. They'll make a decision. They'll make an informed decision themselves. They either like or don't, and that's. But either way, it's like, I think it's like the stuff you created is just legendary. I was trying to dig out my Black Sabbath vintage T-shirts. I couldn't find them actually, so I wore, I guess, my favorite bands, you know, to kind of
I wear another metal. Well,
yeah.
How long have you got those Black Sabbath T-shirts? Then are they old?
Oh yeah, like
long time.
Long time. Yeah.
Your wife has thrown them out.
That's
why you can't find them.
I don't think so, because I bought her one also. She's
only throwing yours.
And the kids have a few, so
she's thrown them out. She's thrown them out with those underpants that you've had since 1987.
Well, I do have a disclosure. So I did find one, which was my daughter's, and I was like, "Can I fit it?" And it was kind of like a belly top, right? So I was like, could I get away with it today? No.
Would I have enjoyed that?
A few of my biker buddy metal buddies would probably hunt me down.
Yeah. You might be excluded from. You might be kicked out.
You're a disgrace to humanity.
Be kicked out of the Cork chapter of the Hells Angels by tomorrow.
No, not the Cork chapter, definitely.
Listen now.
Speaking of Cork, what happened to you on the weekend, guys? What happened?
Hurling, yeah, Jesus. They just they had a game plan and they didn't have a plan B, and Tipperary managed it and saw past it and went man to man, and Cork couldn't handle when they went man to man. Cork stuck with the sweeper system. Tipperary changed it up at half time, and Cork just collapsed. It was one of the more, like, Cork were favourites and Tipperary just ran away with it. It was bad for the management, bad for, you know, decisions made on the day, bad for Cork hurling. And as once again we find ourselves in a position where Cork are in an All-Ireland final, but serious questions have to be asked about Cork hurling. It's mad how they, you know, I mean, look, you're still from Cork, so you have that.
Yeah, but Tip are a phenomenal team. I mean, like that was like they put them down. They put them to sleep. That was it. They outplayed them, you know.
As a Kilkenny man, I suppose I was glad to see Tipperary winning, because
I didn't realize you were a Kilkenny man. Gee, we'll have to change. We'll have to revisit things there, so man. That's
next year. Kilkenny Cork.
If only I was I wasn't in a love-hate relationship with Cork, because they, you know, obviously they're all they have not been kind to us, that's for sure. But there you go, man.
Things are about to change for you. Listen, man, I'll let you go. Thanks very much. We will talk again next week, and I'll say goodbye. Thank you very much for watching. Do tell your friends. If you have any stories, do come to us. MOTH is a platform for you to tell your story. anything that came up in today's show that you have an interest in or an input in, or a story to tell adjacent to any of that stuff, do let us know. We're on X at Moth News, Instagram Moth_news, and YouTube at Moth_news. That's it for us. One more thing, I am looking for a journalist, an investigative journalist, to do some work for us. It seems to be very hard to come by an Irish journalist who will do work for us because, maybe they're afraid. I wouldn't blame them. That's pretty scary. Thanks to Al, thanks to Philip O'Connor, big shout out to Tom, thanks to the guys here in Brown Bear, and thank you to you for watching. We'll be back next week. Until then, stay curious, stay questioning, stay safe, enjoy your weekend. Slán go fóill.